Hey, you guys want to see my video?
Hello everybody, welcome back, it's Friendly Grinder here with some more Diablo action. But before we start, please remember...
Hit that shit!
Drop it!
Hello guys, one more time. Today is explanation before I'm going to upload 7 builds, which I mentioned, but I have to explain a bit because they are not going to be Zaystone Barbarian build. Show you everything guys here. Because I mentioned like I'm gonna do like 10 builds, like Zaystone Barbarian builds. So the Zaystone Barbarian as a speed farming build, it's not the case. But with that being said, might be the case. I will explain that in a minute. Right now, just focus to upload 7 builds. I'm just gonna show you those builds in a minute, explain you, test. Actually 10 builds, 3 builds are not just, we are not able to survive, the 7 builds are like really good to play. So yeah, I'm just gonna show you right now the builds, then I will explain you like why the Zaystone speed farming build is not the case but might be really good soon enough, and we will see that. So we're starting off, so the first build which I'm going to show you guys will be the Crimson and Bulkato. So as you can see right now, do like a roughly explanation because every speed I will do the explanation before the clip anyway, so just roughly explanation. So I hit with timing of 7 minutes and 24 seconds doing the Greater Rift 115. All builds are on the Greater Rift 115 speed farming builds. It's not really like we wanna run this, right? But if you have like survivability issues, you want to try this or you probably want to play that. The other build is obviously the same stuff, but we're running Istvan sets. Okie dokie, so that's the first build. 7 minutes 24 seconds. Obviously it's not like really the build what we're looking for, but if you don't have like no good Istvans, you might considering to run this. Then we have the second build, which is Crimson and Istvan set. That's the second build with the time 5 minutes and 58 seconds. So on average like 1 minute or even 2 minutes faster than the previous build. Also this build, we can't consider this build like it's really good. You don't really want to run this build, despite the fact a lot of people running this build because they think like when you have that additional 55% damage, more damage due to the wearing of the Captain Crimson set passive, which is damage dealt is increased by your percentage of cooldown reduction. Despite the fact we have like 55% damage more, we on average have like 50% less damage. And why is that? Just simply because when we running this, in order to be able to run the Crimson set, we need to give up those 2 slots, which we actually giving up the convention of elements, and we're giving up here another extra additional 25% damage from the mantle of channeling, which is like this build. If you're running this build and you think this build is okay and you don't agree with my opinion, you can go to Rex's channel. Actually he explained that in the last video, like when he hit 150 solo Greater Rift, somebody asked him why you're not using the Crimson set, so he explained actually that's everything what I said right now. So that's kind of like a source I use, but also I knew that like you are actually not better off using the Crimson set in the first place. That's why it's just the second place of the build. So third build is the Istvan and COE Hellfire. Istvan COE Hellfire is just basically the push build. So this is like the push build with obviously not running the Flavor of Time or running the Hellfire, which is better for speed farming for obvious reasons. In that build on the clip, I'm using here Rabbis, will be also explain everything, so obviously to have more damage in general. And in that build I managed to do 5 minutes 41 seconds, which we can consider like it's okay, but it's kind of funny as well because sometimes I'm doing like 120-ish, about like 6 minutes. So every build, you shouldn't judge the builds just by the time, because you know everything is due to the density and also depends how we hire all the pioneers along the way. Timing is actually the other thing. It's like timings are really good, but I'm just saying you might sometimes hit like, I don't know, even 1 minute or 2 minutes slower than that, or maybe higher than that. So you know that will vary. The fourth build is the Heart and Hellfire, so this is like my favorite build actually. I really like that. Maybe it's not like the most efficient or I don't know, best possible build, but I'm really enjoying the fact we are using the totally different weapon in the first place. We are not using the Messerschmitt River all the time, and I really like that build also because we got on the top of that damage 70% extra physical damage increase, and then we got the cooldown reduction 55%. I was testing that build also with the Flavor of Time, so we have additional cooldown reduction and stuff, but overall overall this build is like the most sustained build I tested. I also will just tell you in a minute the 3 builds which I didn't cover. You might feel free to test those builds. Hard Hellfire build is really good, it's really sustained, and it's like you feel really enjoy when you're playing that. It's like really enjoyable to play. So if you guys didn't play that yet, you have to try this because it's really amazing. So 5th place we got the Bulkatos and Convention of Element with just Hellfire. So that's actually funny because the 2nd place was Crimson Istvan set. Like I said, everybody think like the Crimson is the case. I'm just gonna show you guys one more time. So everybody think like we running Crimson and then the Istvan, and that's like the best build. Despite the fact like I got like the best weapons, and then that build is still like not really good. The 5th place, normal Convention of Elements build with Bulkatos, but also it depends about the high rolling, the pylons and density, but you will see that in the clip. Overall this build is really consistent and it's really good. It's slightly maybe worse than actually running the Istvan. We're just gonna put like that. Despite the fact the Istvan COE Hellfire is on the 3rd place, like I said, we can't really judge those builds by the timing I hit because, like I said one more time, due to the density and the high rolling the pylons, so this build is much more consistent. But if you don't have like really good Istvans, you might consider to run like with the Bulkatos, and that's really great as well. 6th place, so that's the one probably I think you didn't run or didn't try to run in that order. Like we are not really using the Bastion of Will set, we are using the Stone of Jordan and Convention of Element with Band of Mind in the Canais Cube, just simply because we are not going to be able to survive in any COE build without the Band of Mind, because the idea was obviously to not using or to not running Band of Mind at all. I'll just tell you that in a minute. But despite the fact 3000 Paragon, the 3000 Paragon is kind of like not really high. Like if we manage to hit 4000 by playing solo, then we might consider ourselves like we actually have the high Paragon. So yeah, 3000 is like we are not going to survive on 115, but also if you have 4000 you don't really want to speedfire on 115 because you can just basically use the Istvan Convention of Elements build, and you will be better off always if we're talking about the 120, you know, ish kind of speed farming builds. Okay, so this build overall is like really crazy good. It's really nice to play. Obviously the mandatory is to have on both rings cooldown reduction, so I have here like 7% cooldown reduction, and here we got the 8% cooldown reduction. Despite of the fact obviously when we have the cooldown reduction, our damage overall is a little bit lower, about 10% lower, so it's not a little bit, but we need to have like mandatory is to be able to you know, play the Wrath of Berserker constantly. So we got the cooldown reduction 48% in this build, physical damage increase 60% due to the Stone of Jordan. So this build is really nice, I really like it. 4 minutes 57 seconds. Also, like I said, don't judge the builds about the timings, but was the almost the best timing, so in that order I will upload the builds. And the 7th build is the last one but not the least. That will be the Messerschmitt River with Bastions of Will set. So that's the build I managed to hit.
Hit that shit.
4 minutes 0.05 milliseconds, so we can just call like 4 minutes time. And this build, I knew from the beginning when I was testing that this build is just like overall the most consistent, the most powerful. And then obviously when you're playing within the group, you might consider to basically not running the Band of Mind here and put the Convention of Elements, and also try to swap like Ground Stomp into the Call of the Ancient with Together as One, which give us the 50% of all damage dealt to us is instead divided evenly between the Ancients. Why I didn't cover that build, why I didn't play it? Actually I played a lot. I was even trying like hard, trying to manage that build, like doing like clip it, like this is the case, this is like, oh boy, it's a good build. But overall those 3 builds which I'm gonna tell you right now, they're not good by playing solo, despite the fact obviously I changed Rabbies to the diamonds in order to have more resistance, so I've done it that. And also I was running, like I said, Call of the Ancient with Together as One passive instead of the Ground Stomp. The 3 builds which I tested, and they like on the paper they looks like really fine, really decent and really amazing snowballing, I don't know, like overpowered ghost builds and whatever you wanna call it, honestly, like POG builds or whatever. But Honestly, they looks fine. They sometimes you can sustain with them, but overall they're not really sustained. Also, even if you manage to finish off like the rifts, then if we're talking about the killing the Rift Guardian boss thing is kind of like, you know, exhausting, to be honest. So talking about this build with like I said, swapping to convention of elements, and then we're talking about, I had like two ideas to actually running hard with also taking out the Band of Mind and putting a convention of elements with obviously the cooldown reduction here. So I managed to hit almost 60% cooldown reduction, and then we got the 70% more damage, physical more damage. 70% physical damage increased. Looks like on the paper it's really amazing. Then the third build from those builds was just simply swapping the convention of elements to Stone of Jordan with reduced cooldown of all skills as well. Looks like that. The idea was actually to pull off those builds because they looks like really great. So I was trying, instead of playing with the Hellfire Amulet, because we got like crazy DPS output, so I was just trying to not even using the Rampage passive at all, just simply put the Flavor of Time to hit 60% cooldown reduction, and also that's another 2% damage from the Crimson buff. So we got like 60% more damage, then we got like 90% more physical damage. Yeah, that's it. This is like, looks on the paper like really decent, really powerful, like crazy, but we are not able to survive. Also those two, I mean armor and legs, I put the diamonds here. I might consider to test this maybe later, maybe before this end of the season. Maybe I will have a little bit more paragons, but the thing is, from the 3000 paragons, additional paragons doesn't really change a lot. Yeah, so we are not consistent with surviving with this build, but I really wish that will be like the case, because when you're looking on the, you know, stats here, cooldown reduction 60% more, I mean, overall, and then physical damage increase 90% damage, so it's like, wow, this is like, those numbers just crazy, guys. But overall, I'm just going to upload 7 builds. They are all builds, the Bane of the Stricken, despite the fact I was talking a lot about the Zaystone, and now I'm just gonna talk a bit about what I was trying to say in the first place, because I mentioned the Zaystone is not the case, but might be the case in the future. So the thing is, I'm just gonna spoil you a bit about everything what's going to be in the future. So I have to right now talk a little bit, just a few seconds, about the push build itself. If we play the push build, we have on the Flavor of Time physical skill damage, and then we have on the Risk physical skill damage, and then we are running obviously the Bane of the Stricken, because everybody who is playing from the beginning, you are not going to play Zaystone, just simply due to the fact you don't have enough stats, you don't have enough points on the strength to utilize in the efficient way the Zaystone. But the Zaystone is only the way to actually finish off like 150 GRs, like we are talking like 140 plus GRs, those higher, greater rifts, not because we are just going to kill the Rift Guardian by playing the Zaystone. We just have to correctly reset our stacks in order to hit the angels when we are finishing the rift, the greater rift. So when we're finishing the greater rift, the Zaystone is much better to kill the trash mobs in order to trigger those stacks, you know, those 100 stacks, 150, 200 stacks, those, you know, twisters, gazers, rain of the gold chest and stuff and such, like, you know, 400 the fireworks, and then the last stack 500 for the angels. So obviously we are not running the Zaystone because it's much better to finish off those lower, higher, greater rifts. I'm talking about everything was below 140 with the Stricken. But then when we are talking about the end game build, we are re-rolling those two affixes from the physical skills to the lighting damage skills, and then we actually swapping the Stricken to using the Zaystone in order to have like much more powerful damage, due to the fact like when we are actually using the blood buff on the rend, we just got 1100, so it's 1100 more weapon damage, but when we are actually using the lighting, we got the 1350 more damage, no, 1350 damage. So we actually swapping the blood buff to lacerate rune, and then we have much more damage in the first place. We are able to actually finish off those trash mobs within those 140 plus greater rifts. And now the long story short is I'm going to use the Zaystone in the speed farming builds. Basically, I just need to reroll the physical damage on the amulet and the risk to the lighting damage, and then try to pull off those speed farming builds with that setup running the Zaystone as well instead of the Stricken. I hopefully that's what I said, you understand everything. If not, just, you know, ask me the questions in the comment section below. Obviously, if I said something wrong, correct me, because I'm really happy about that. Like, I'm just gonna say one more time, just thank you to the James to point out, like, I was calling the Z-Barb Zaystone Barbarian build, but obviously the Z-Barb is just the 0 DPS, and then every other Rend Barb build is just R Barb, so Rend Barb. But I thought actually R means is from the support and Z is from the Zaystone. Okie dokie, I think I covered everything, guys. I hope you guys like it, and see you in the next one.
Hit that shit.